Hello and welcome back to Carlos and Lisa. I'm Lisa Remillard.
And I'm Carlos Amezcua. This weekend, millions around the world come together to celebrate International Women's Day. It's a day to honor the social, economic, cultural, and political achievements of women.
There's a lot of ups, there's a lot of stagnant, there's a lot of downs that have been going on in these last couple of years especially. So we invited author of today's Wonder Women, everyday superheroes who are changing the world. Asha Daya is here to talk about International Women's Day. Hello, Asha.
Hello, Lisa.
Asha, nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me on the show.
This is a very cool book. You've got all these women here that you've talked to. Tell me about what the subject matter was, basically, as the theme of the book.
So, as the title kind of suggests, it's everyday heroes. You know, we hear a lot about famous women throughout history, well-known, notable people in politics, sports, celebrities, all of that. But I wanted to honor the everyday women and kind of use that as part of the ongoing cultural conversation around elevating women's stories. So it's 50+ profiles and interviews of women, mostly around North America, but some in different countries. As you can hear, I'm from Australia, so I wanted to bring that international flavour to it as well. And it's just showing people who read it that there are people in our communities and everyday lives and networks that that really can inspire us as well.
All right, let's talk about, because International Women's Day, we're in Women's History Month, you know, let's talk about where we have come and where...
How much time have we got?
I know, yeah, it's going to be an hour, folks. Where we have come and how much farther there is to go. And the reason why I bring this up is because we've talked a lot about the Me Too movement. We've talked a lot about that kind of cultural shift in the workplace, in life.
Yeah.
But how much further do we need to go?
I think there definitely is. It's important to always celebrate the progress and remember, you know, even if you look back just 1 year, you can see, wow, we've accomplished so much because of that movement or that speech or that vote or whatever. But there definitely is a long way to go. The Me Too movement you mentioned, you know, a lot of things have shifted. People are talking about this issue, but now we need to see concrete action. Is every workplace, have they got standards in place to make sure that people are protected, their voice is able to, you know, they're able to speak up and not suffer ramifications for talking about their experiences. But if you look at a lot of the movements throughout history, a lot of them have been started by women. There's Black Lives Matter, there's Me Too, the climate change movement. I mean, there's so many that are just really exciting.
Let's talk about the women's suffrage movement.
Women's suffrage,
way back in the day. So
absolutely.
this is something that's been going on for decades and more than a century in some cases. Tell me a little bit about the common thread that you found in these women. Is there a common thread?
There is some common threads. A lot of the women are mothers. You know, they found that through their own experience and their families and their smaller communities, they found issues that relate to them personally. And even the ones who aren't mothers, some of them are students, some of them are college students, some of them are entrepreneurs who don't have kids, but they found a problem that they're relatively close to. And they're like, I want to be the change. I want to be the solution. I can do that. I don't need to have millions of dollars. I don't need to be a celebrity. I can make the change where I am right now and just use what I have. So that's one of the common themes.
As these women are kind of in their individual silos trying to make a change, there's also, we're trying to make a movement change in, especially I would say in the workplace. I was just reading a study recently about how there was a push just, you know, in the last couple of years to get more women on the boards, chairmanship boards and boards of big companies, and still it hasn't happened. But I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that if we get more women in that position, then the Me Too issues wouldn't be so hard in a workplace.
Yeah, I do agree. We need to see, you know, gender equal representation in those positions that matter, and that is leadership. You know, when you look at, I think it's Fortune 500 or the S&P, the number of female CEOs is 4% or 5%, and that's not good enough. I mean, it's 2020, right?
Right.
So
and it's not like women in those positions would do worse than men. You know, it's just a cultural issue.
Right, and they bring a different perspective. You know, when you have a diverse representation of your leadership, you can bring different sensibilities, different perspective and life experience, and you can represent more people. And I think that's really important too.
I think it's really interesting to look at this from a global perspective, because the American culture is one way. The Latino culture that I come from is different than the American culture. The European culture is different. The Asian culture, the Indian culture. So you go through all these cultural movements, and media has brought us all together. And now we're comparing and contrasting how women are living in Latin America, how they're living in the US, how they're living in Europe. How has that impacted the way women think about themselves and what they can do?
That's a really interesting question. And I think because of media, there is such a focus on what are these women and girls doing around the world because of Me Too. Me Too has, there are a lot of like local Me Too marches happening in different countries. Right now there's a huge Mexican feminist uprising. They're talking about violence against women. And I think it's really good. It's giving women a cultural voice, especially in places and maybe cultures that wasn't traditionally there. And because of social media especially, there are avenues for women to talk about their stories and connect in ways that didn't exist before. So that's really important.
Yeah,
I love that.
You know, one of the other projects that you're working on, and it is super controversial,
Yeah.
and I want to talk about it because I think it goes along with this whole women's movement, and that is the reproductive rights of women.
Yes.
You're doing a documentary series on this, and I think it's fascinating the way you're going about it, because you're not necessarily documenting pro-life versus pro-choice and which is better. You're actually talking about the issue.
You gave a TEDx talk about it, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So how?
Where have we gone wrong?
Yeah. Where have we gone wrong?
So the TEDx talk, so the documentary series is called Life at All Costs, going beyond pro-choice versus pro-life, because I feel like those two are very political labels. The minute you say, I'm this or that, you either, okay, I'm your best friend, or, oh, I don't like you.
Right.
And I feel like that's not helpful, because when you look at the issue of reproductive justice, maternal health, all of these, or even the A word that a lot of people don't like to talk about, abortion, it's you can't just look at it in a vacuum. It's like, what are the other factors that intersect? Is it poverty? Is it race? Is it access to support systems? And how are you supported in that parenting choice? Or, you know, all
Either
of those
parenting
things.
choice.
Exactly.
Right.
Or not to parent, you know.
Right.
How we set up as a system so that no matter which direction you go in, you know that you're making the right choice for yourself, and that people who don't have anything to do with your life aren't making that decision for you, you know.
So what kind of information do you provide to get that balance that you're looking for?
So I feel like I want to ask the questions, the big questions. I want to dive into like the complex stories, because it's easier to look at this as an issue, but once we look at the individual people, like, tell me your story. How did you arrive at that decision? How many kids do you already have?
In a non-judgmental way.
In a non-judgmental way.
Right.
All of a sudden, you can't hate someone who's right in front of you. You know, you hear the nuance, you see the complexity, and then you realize, okay, there's more to this than just you either did this or that. So that's what I want to provide as a host, as a journalist, asking the questions and, you know, not necessarily getting people to change their minds, but just challenging themselves to like, all right, how can I approach this in a more compassionate way, a more nuanced way? Because it is very complex, you know?
I find it interesting that you approach it that way, because so much of our discussion, whether it's abortion or any other issue, there seems to be more polarization today than ever before. So it's hard to have a discussion where you disagree respectfully, right?
Yeah, it is hard. And like, I come from a very conservative Christian background, and so I lived in that space where I'm very vehemently pro-life, and then when I left that community because of different personal things that I went through and started shifting my mindset on this issue because of friends in church that I realized would say, you know, would proclaim that they are pro-life, but then behind the scenes, they were going through different things and making decisions about their own reproductive rights in a way that they didn't feel supported by their movement. So it's like, all right, well, this needs to be opened up a bit more. We need to talk in a way that doesn't alienate each other. So.
And then now, just to wrap up this conversation, I want to talk about kind of where we've come. And like, let's just have a celebration moment for a second.
Yes.
I mean, I know we can't do it for long, but this weekend and this month in particular is really a good opportunity to just say, you're doing good, honey.
You're doing
you
good.
know?
Yes. I don't think that we should just celebrate it for a day or a month, but it is a great time to remind each other, like, let's support our network of women, let's support our sisters, our mothers, and look at how far we've come, and vow to keep doing better in the places that we need to improve.
Yeah,
so it's a great time.
I'm a lot older than the both of you, and so I have seen the progress from the 60s and 70s, when young women were going to university to get their MRS degree as opposed to getting a degree to do something else. Right. The unusual, really strong women went on to become doctors and lawyers and business women and all that. But then there was the women who wanted to make the choice to stay at home and get married. That was a choice back in the 60s and 70s when I was in school.
Yeah.
And to see what's and there weren't women in the newsroom for that matter when I started in television.
Yeah.
So that goes way back many years.
Well, and now
but
more
you see
women are
that-
going to college
so now,
than men.
So now
Yes.
to see
Yes.
your perspective is way different than my perspective because
Right.
I've seen the explosive growth and the influence, the great influence that women have had in our business and in the world as a whole. So to me, it's a celebration. It's a big move.
Absolutely.
It's a big deal.
You said the key word there, choice. You know, whether you want to be a stay-at-home mother, and you can be a feminist, you can be, you know, empowered in that choice. You know, I think
Absolutely.
that's what we need to be reminded of, the fact that women get to decide what future we want with their partners, with their families, with their children, but it's not one or the other. You know, it's having that choice.
Wow, what a great conversation.
It is a great conversation. Asha, thank you for coming. We can get the book everywhere, right?
Yes, it's on
Today-
Amazon, Goodreads, Barnes & Noble. You can pre-order it, you can buy it. Today's
Fantastic.
Wonder Women. Check
there
it
it
out.
is. Today's
There
Wonder
it is.
Women.
Asha,
Everyday
thank you.
superheroes. We're changing the world.
Thank you, Asha, for
Thank you
Good
for
to have you
having
here.
me.